After going through the ins and outs of navigating social anxiety as an adult woman in 2025, my main concern was why I crossed paths with certain characters in the first place and what it revealed to me about myself. What fascinated me more is not so much the people that we realize are outside of our alignment and outside of our truth, but how our people-pleasing ways and our anxieties around social settings develop a path for us and a lifestyle that we exist in that's inside of a box of someone else's making, all for the sake of being good in the eyes of our oppressors. So I'm past the late 20s, and I think it's time for me to establish my own ideas of what's good or bad, what's right or wrong, what my moral compass truly is, and to stand firm in those things whether people agree with it or not. This inner quarrel where we decide to be at war with ourselves to have peace within the world, or to have peace within the world for war in ourselves. All of this can trigger anxiety and uncertainty and insecurities, and I think it's a good time for us to talk through it. Welcome to the Ron Hab podcast, where we get real and then some. I'm your host, Jasmin.siri, and every week I will speak on topics that align with reprogramming the subconscious mind. I share my experiences and discuss how I navigate life consciously so we can reach higher heights and deeper dimensions of the mind to reach our goals from a healed and open place together. So, let's get started. I think I've noticed for a while now that I have social anxiety because ending conversations, especially arguments, is a challenge for me. I don't know if it's my inability to recognize certain cues and just my overall lack of trust of my abilities to see different cues as what they are, or this insatiable need to be right and for others to believe what I'm saying and to agree with me. Because as uncomfortable as we feel to say that we're adults, let someone disagree with your mental processing and tell me how adult you're able to naturally respond to that. I would be lying if I said every time I responded to someone disagreeing with me, it was in a mature and conducive way. I think as a people pleaser, I recognize that people pleasers of all kinds, whether you're currently one or recovering from being one, we have this attachment to being perceived as good, doing what's right, or being known as a good person so much that we bypass authenticity if it means receiving validation from others. And those feelings are always fleeting. It's like an addiction, and anytime we get that piece of approval, it's like taking a hit. And before knowing any different, you assume that this cycle feels better than self-actualization and taking pride in your own being and the many ways that you could potentially disappoint others by being your true self. Why are we so rigid in our beliefs? Why do we care so much about what people say or what people think? And I'm not saying that you do all the time, but it's just a human thing that we do, and I think it's okay to express that feeling, because if we can't do it here, then where else could we do it, you know? So it wasn't all the time, but I think for a long time I did want approval or to be understood or have community around people that I respected. But now when I realized that these people were never going to like me, never going to respect me or see me as their equal anyway, at first I grew anxious around it, trying to curate my personality in ways that maybe felt smaller enough for them to feel comfortable around. And then there was a day that I just took a mental look at myself and the type of path that my truth was taking me on, and just how much it aligned with my happiness and my expansion. And I realized that the people that were a witness to my life but weren't necessarily in my life. I like to call them the NPCs, or the people that just wanted to play the role of the antagonist in my plot because they just could not understand or fathom my lifestyle. I recognized that they all kind of had a similarity. All of them existed in result of choices of their lives that I knew for a fact I never would take if I had the opportunity to. There was a time where I actually cared enough to wonder why these specific people that I couldn't even relate to wanted to look at me as a bad person. I think what made me so different is because they didn't necessarily understand my intentions and the reason why I made certain choices so much that they feared me because of it. Not that I appeared scary or mean, but because I represented everything that they lacked, every choice that they didn't take, and the work that they dare not touch within themselves because maybe it could reveal a bias that they are not really ready to work through. But moving on, the funniest part about all of that was when it happens, there's a part of you that still wants a positive experience with these type of people. Like you still want peace with them. I think that's what people pleasers do. We try to still win people over, and it's a waste of energy and it's a waste of time. And I used to suffer from this thing and ask myself all of these, debilitating questions as to why I wasn't enough to bring people together. And then I heard this quote from someone saying that you can give a dog the most luxurious and the finest desserts in the world, and they will still have the runs after because their stomachs were never made to consume such things. And neither were the people who purposely misunderstand you. And after thinking of it in those ways, my anxiety towards, social acceptance started to slowly trickle away. I realized, like, for who I am, just the history of my experiences, the things that I enjoy, I am for a specific culture. And in a place where I live, like Austin, where there is very minimal culture, it's no wonder why it's hard for me to find that type of acceptance in places where cultures just don't exist and don't thrive. Ever since I was like a young girl, my heart's desire was to be more than heard. I wanted to be understood, and for a very long time, my confidence in expressing myself relied upon how well another person was able to understand and agree with me. And usually, when I'm in certain settings where culture exists, this is not hard at all. And it just makes my confidence not really in a position to stand firm 100% of the time. And I don't necessarily think that that's a good enough route either. How small of me to put so much of my own value in other people's hands for them to decide if it's worthy or not. Whether I'm in spaces where people are agreeing with me or disagreeing with me, it's still worthy. I had to experience my own awakening emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, where I realized there were boxes and walls within my own mind that I no longer could fit in. And that's when I knew the changes happening in me were for the better, because why would I or any of us shrink ourselves to fit in the hands of others to validate? I think that's what anxiety is. It's creating invisible walls, barriers, and doors for us to constantly walk through that no one else can see or feel but ourselves. And although they're invisible and we can't necessarily touch them, they feel so real that they can impact our physical lives in real ways. Also, these barriers that we create, we don't realize it. It takes us a time to see, but that through the trial and error of like relating with different people, we start to realize that these limitations that we create exist nowhere outside of our own minds. So the most people that we love, the people that we choose to be in relationships, probably won't be okay with being governed by the same restrictions that we put on our own selves. So it makes having relationship with us a little bit of a challenge. Not to say that it's not doable or we're not worthy of relationships, but just because you're not cheating on your partner doesn't mean that they're going to be okay with reassuring you every time about these fears that are not real, that are not happening, but a result of something in the past that you can't let go of. And in some ways, through our own suffering and our own anxiety, we're inflicting pain and discomfort on other people. I'm not saying that in relationships or in friendships, friction won't happen. But if it's something that is in our power and it's something that we can control, if you're bringing restrictions into the mind of someone who didn't exist in them before they met you, how does it make you feel to be bringing them into their lives all because of your own mind? I just don't think that that's fair. And usually when people suffer from anxiety, we're so in fight or flight. All we care about is our needs being met and what we need at that time, because panicking and having anxiety, it's real, it's scary, it feels dangerous. But there's just so much work that we have to do to prepare ourselves for these episodes, so that we're not 100%, but we're able to be more aware and present in our friendships and our partnerships when we're falling short of, being an equal partner or being a good friend because of our anxiety. I used to think that when I attracted a person outside of my alignment with my emotional awareness and depth, that it took something from me, or my ego would be so concerned that they would almost literally have an aneurysm just trying to keep up with the ways that I think. And that's just ridiculous because, I think life has shown me more about myself in the presence of the people I claim are outside of my vibration, more than anyone that is automatically in alignment and completely agrees with me. I think, all of the spiritual paths of either Christ consciousness, Buddha, Dalai Lama, even Eckhart Tolle, and all of the amazing books that I have probably consumed over the years, it's so impressive, not because of the way it inspired the people who were always on the path of being aware and have lived culturally in, familiar wisdoms, but the ways that their words have the ability to captivate the parts of the people that don't know. They all have this kindred universal truth that anyone could, if they wanted to, find themselves in the presence of and feel at peace. When I read these words, sometimes it's like taking an ice bath or a cold shower for my spirit. It's like I can read a text or hear a sound and I'm reminded where we all come from, and that gives me the bravery to just continue speaking no matter what anxiety and my insecurities have brought me through. If I could be a big sister to anyone watching, I want to do that by saying your anxiety is not a curse to anyone that you love or yourself. What you deserve is grace and patience. And the best way for you to align yourself with someone that is outside the limitation of anxiety is if you find a way to extend grace and patience with yourself first, so that life can mirror that type of love back to you in your friendships and relationships, because you are worthy. For anyone living with anxiety, we know now that it comes in waves. We don't realize it's happening until we're deep in the bottom of this swell of emotion, and the people that we love can't reach us. It's too deep, and we just have to find a way to pull ourselves out. And maybe the only thing that can really help us is time, until it's a place that we can come up for air and breathe to realize that we're okay. I don't know. But I think it's more damaging for people to talk about what types of relationships we should stay in or what type of relationships we should leave behind. And I think sometimes that causes us more confusion. Most people aren't choosing relationships for themselves anymore. They're choosing the partner that they can receive most outward validation for having. And it's all like this ego-driven thing. And I'm not saying that we aren't choosing someone that we're attracted to, but there's just so much more that a partner can experience as a witness to our lives. No matter what choice you make, you should make sure that you're choosing a partner for your future, or something that makes you feel like home or the best versions of yourself. I think in culture we often attach ourselves to another person's outcome as a way for our insecurities to validate their own unworthiness. And we've become addicted to that feeling of not having and lack, and We grow addicted to the storyline, but because you've set an expectation of always wanting, but not necessarily having, you dangle it in front of yourself for the rest of your life. It's like wanting to manifest like a poster on your wall when you have an open door behind you that gives you the ability to go after more than what this poster could ever show you. It's not until we turn our heads away from this fabricated image of someone else's work that we see what could potentially be for us. For example, I never chose the traditional path, so my partnerships aren't going to resemble traditional values in certain ways either. And for a very long time, speaking for myself, childbirth, that experience was never an option in my life. And when I'm making a decision in partnership, I have to decide on a person that would potentially be okay with that. At first, I didn't think twice about it, and I existed in these relationships where men tried to convince me that it was something that I wanted, and I realized how, disrespectful and selfish it was for me to waste a person's time, assuming that one day this person was going to expect me to exist in a role that I never wanted for myself. I think because of that, I hid behind unserious connections, because to choose something serious and move forward with the progression of relationships would also require something from me that I never wanted for myself, and this would cause me anxiety in relationships. I think subconsciously I would go for the person that wasn't necessarily a good fit, not because I didn't recognize the signs, is because if I really thought about it deep down in my bones, was it something I valued enough to make perfect anyway? Was it something I valued enough to want to make it good or not? When you're someone that has experienced like abandonment or anxiety around relationship, all you're doing is waiting for that time to leave. So if a person can exist in your life and you not feel that attachment, it just makes things 10 times more, 10 times better. And I think for someone with anxiety, the thought of having a child and someone constantly there or looking to you as an example of how to be, how to act, and the pressure that you have on wanting to do things right, it's just something that just is so triggering. I'm saying this like as being as raw and honest as I possibly can, and maybe it's something that I need to talk to someone about and work through. It's just the attachment that I would have to this world by having children, knowing that one day I'm not going to exist here anymore. It triggers my anxiety in a way that I don't think it's worth feeling. I think there's a part of me that has always felt this way since I was a kid. Like I swear, before I could even read well, I remember telling my grandmother, like, oh, I don't want any kids. Like, I don't want it. I just don't want it. It's not for me. Like, I appreciate you guys, but it's going to end with me, basically, as far as, like, lineage goes. And they thought, well, it's just going to take the right person. Oh, you're young. You don't know what you mean. But I think I was so maybe past the experience of, like, the subservitude of, like, motherhood and all of the things, if that's even a word, whatever, that I didn't want my life to resemble that. Like, if you ask me, okay, yeah, I existed in motherhood in my past life and it wasn't what it was cracked out to be. I didn't have as much fun as I thought I would have had. It was a thankless job, and maybe this life is dedicated to myself, what I want, and the selfish needs of the inner child that I have. Maybe if I dedicate more time into doing that instead of hiding behind these, labels as a wife, as a mother, as whatever, these matriarchs of a family, then I can actually get to the root of what that is so I don't have to come back here. And I think I wanted to dedicate this life to like discovering my truth and like really getting past things that when I'm focused on another person, I'm not really able to. It stunts my growth. And yeah, as selfish as that sounds, that's the truth. And I hear like it's not as popular as it was, but when people were debating about like the women that did have kids and the women that didn't have kids, and there was like this quarrel about like how we talk about certain things, it's like I don't think it's as surface level as it seems. I think there's a part of us that always wants something that we don't have sometimes. Like, of course, we want to know what it would be like if we made a certain choice to have them or to not have them. But at the end of the day, there's nothing that we can do about the choices that we make except follow through with them and live through them. And, yeah, I think we actually can hear and understand each other a lot more than we're upset at each other for being honest about how we feel. That's just what I think. And if there are any women that kind of feel the same way that I felt but are reluctant to say it, let me know in the comments. I know that I'm a different person, but it's good to know that you're not the only one that feels certain ways, especially about like big life things. Like, it would be so weird for me when I would like, when you're in that talking stage with a person and they want to talk about all of these future things that you have for your life. The amount of times that I would lie to a man because it was just fun to see him exist in this fairy tale of like every woman wanting to be a mother. It's just not real. It's not true. I think as I got in my later 20s, I would say the quiet part out loud of like, oh, well, no, I never really thought about it. I never really wanted it. And the way that men would judge a woman because of they were honest about like just that one small part of life, the way that so many people, hold a woman's value by their ability to produce life, it's just effing insane. And then we have all of these rules and restrictions on our bodies, and it's like, you guys are confusing me because y'all are effing confused, and don't involve me in it. I'm just not going to involve myself in it in this lifetime. Hopefully in the next 5 to 10 years, let's just see where life goes. Because if I'm over here with a baby on my hip, it's just going to be funny. I'm such a hypocrite anyway. And as much as we can say that we are above arguments or going back and forth, I always say that after like a full hour of going back and forth with someone that I care about. How many of you have ever like practiced your comebacks or your arguments in your car, in your shower, and your moments alone? Because let's not play like we have never done that or we've never gotten there with ourselves before. I think that in a way is a sign of anxiety too. But if this is true for you, do you think you practice this because you can't necessarily exist anymore with the shame and guilt of losing an argument before and not being able to properly defend yourself or stand up for yourself? I think so many times I've been gutted with being the only person unable to read the room long enough to realize that the people I had around me actually did not like me. And it's like maybe they kept me around for whatever entertainment purposes. And every time that I finally come to my senses, I felt like a self-betrayal. Like, how did I not know that these people didn't value me? Am I so used to being taken for granted that it feels like home? So to release myself from these ruminating thoughts of the past, because obviously, if you can tell, this anxiety keeps me in a loop of trying to make up from the past that doesn't exist anywhere in my life anymore. And when you're having anxiety about like past scenarios or trying to find good comebacks or like always trying to have arguments in your mind, it's personally, I believe it stems from a time where you missed an opportunity to protect yourself or missed an opportunity to defend yourself, and you haven't forgiven yourself for that. So you kind of prepare yourself for scenarios that haven't happened, and by your preparation and the energy that you're creating to make this comeback, you're kind of attracting situations even when they're not happening. Majority of the times where I got into like disagreements with people, it was because I perceived that I needed protection that wasn't necessary. So I was like on a level that no one was at because I perceived their actions was something that I needed to protect myself from, even when it was not happening, y'all. And when you're anxious, socially, mentally, emotionally, it happens so very often. And it's like, it's naive to exist in a world without feeling like you need to protect yourself, especially as a woman. You know, I can't even walk to the grocery store without feeling this, this tingling down my back that I need to stay on guard. But it kind of changes the ways that we can exist in social settings. And I wish that I existed in, maybe a past life, or when I say like a younger life, that didn't teach me so much about the ways that I needed to defend myself, because maybe I would exist in this adulthood with a little bit more softness. I'm just now recently trying to find the softness that has always been inside of me that was never able to fully exist because of the ways that I needed to protect myself in my past. And I don't know if I should blame my culture for it. I don't know if I should blame, Black communities for this experience, or thank them for knowing how to protect myself. It's interesting, and I don't even have the answers, but it's just something interesting to say out loud. I realize, like, as I'm existing in adulthood, I can look at a person and say, you didn't go to a Black high school, did you? Because it's the way that maybe they're not able to catch certain jokes, or they just don't understand what could easily cause a disagreement, or what is just like crazy to say out loud, what could be offensive. And it's like, I'm glad that I have that experience of life, but it makes me wonder, what if I hadn't? It doesn't make it good or bad, it's just interesting. Also, I'm now slowly getting used to not having or trying to find the answers in things, not trying to, figure things out and letting things be. I think a part of my anxiety was expressed through my abilities to solve certain problems. I think that's why I started a YouTube channel, because I had all of these answers, all of these ideas, no place to put them but into the universe. And I'm happy I did. But I'm slowly trying to have conversations that people can get things from without necessarily taking anything with it. Like, I don't have a list of cues and things to give you. I don't have anything to sell you. But maybe by me having this conversation, it just feels good to hear. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I wish that that was enough. I remember a time when that was enough. Hopefully it's slowly coming back to that. I'm saying all of this to say that there should be a surrender to what is, not because you're okay with being wrong or proud to be right, not because to win an argument is important or to lose is to fail and to suffer, but because the perception of the truth is only valid to the person telling it at the time. And I think a lot of what kept me in these conversational loops was my inability to accept my truth, as important as it is, without anyone having to agree. I needed another person to see my truth, otherwise it wasn't valid enough on its own. And that was the issue. It wasn't anyone else, it was myself. Life has taught me, especially in my late 20s, I'm now 30. I keep saying it, girl. I'm never gonna let you guys not know how old I am in every video. Sorry. But I think the truth is, no one is attached to our truths more than we are. And if we trusted ourselves, another person's idea of what's important shouldn't matter. And it's okay to leave things as it is. The mindset of always wanting to win an argument and the opportunity to receive validation is something that kept me also in the cycle. If I resisted the urge to receive validation, if I resisted the urge to be liked, if I resisted the urge to want to be accepted, I am totally okay. I think if you're someone that has existed alone for a very long time, like I have friends that are good. I've chosen close people to me that I love and I respect and I admire, but I don't have just a whole bunch of people that I know. I don't have a large network of people that I call friends. And that's something that I don't think it's going to change about me anytime soon. And what this did for me is allow me at a very young age to be okay with it just being me. But I think as you grow older and you see different experiences, there was a point in time where I thought I was missing something because I didn't have a lot of people in my life that weren't really my friends, but they were in my life. Like the fact that I didn't have all of these people to call about all of these things, I thought that it meant I did something wrong. Now to get to a point to realize, no, quality over quantity always, but at the same time, it's in a preparation for something. There's going to be a point in time where my experiences won't be for the masses to share it with. It just won't. And I think the solitude and having my own counsel of the people that I respect and admire and people that actually care about me is important for me to establish and build and curate now, because it just gets a little bit different as you grow older. What does winning an argument validate for you? For me, it represented how well I was able to protect myself. And when you're probably unhealed from missing so many different social cues in the past, this small moment in time is important for you. It can be the difference between you moving on or having ruminating thoughts of the same argument over and over again. Bottom line, what's important is that the version I am now is someone that could protect the younger version of me. And I'm happy to say that I think I can do that without having a conflict with someone else or receiving this specific form of justice just to validate my own experience, because I truly feel like I am enough and all I have to do is listen to myself. I think without that validation from an outside source, at first it was hard for me to know what was right or wrong, and now that I'm here, what's important to me is neither being right or wrong. I just want to be open enough to listen and hold space for the importance of like this younger version of me that's at the center of who I am. So instead of creating these walls for protection, I'm just embracing an openness and occupying every space of uncertainty inside so that the core of myself, and you can call it that younger part of me, whoever she is safe enough to create and experience and learn and express joy no matter what it looks like. It's removing of an oppression so much. You're open enough for all things, the good, the possibility of the bad, and being hurt, and etc. So, all of the learning and unlearning is happening in my 30s in a way that it never has before. So I think this video won't be about any tips or tricks or answers to routines, just me shedding some skin to reveal more of myself so that we can recognize ourselves in one another. I think that's the most important part of building a community and a connection, especially with people that you see online. Yeah. So, this new version of me is emerging, and I'm so proud of it. And it wants ease, it wants peace, it wants understanding for sure, but it understands that understanding won't happen in every corner of my life, and that's okay. Although I chose, a harder path in my life, and sometimes it gets harder before it gets easier, I think I can still be a woman that exists in softness and release different anxieties and barriers of the mind that just are no longer serving me. If I'm building relationships based on a mask I created to make myself appear more normal, and all of that performative bullshit resulted in lukewarm connections, was it even worth it? Because when I needed to be filled, when I needed partnership or someone able to meet me at my emotional needs, as far as like the ways that I process life and my awareness. Very rare was I able to be in the presence of someone that was eye level with me when it came down to the way that I saw life, or able to really pour back into me because of all of the ways that I built connections in the past. And I'm so grateful now for the connections that I've built in this version of myself, because I get to exist 100% in who I am and not feel like I have to hide versions of myself to better connect with these people. And I appreciate them so much. And sometimes it's in those connections, or it's in the moments that I'm spending time with these people, that I'm able to be 100% myself, that I'm able to fall back in love with my truth and myself all over again. It's not until after I'm spending time with these people that I look back and say, it's like, wow, I love this person for who they are, but I also love how they make me feel like more of myself. And I'm able to dive deeper into the version of myself that comes up because I am given a space to be authentically myself. It's just such a blessing when that happens. I think anxiety is a cry for reassurance and safety that we have to constantly remind ourselves that we have, to get us back into like a regulated state, to move forward and to create again. I think some of us just need to hear that you are safe. You are safe to create things. You are safe to be open for disappointment because you have the tools to move forward. You are safe enough to say that certain connections are not enough. Your desires are still safe to receive, even in a world where very few people understand them. You are safe to ask for more. You are safe to be seen winning. Thank you guys so much for making it to this far into the video. I hope this conversation was able to give you something, in the way that it's made me feel really good to just let it all out. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram at jasmin.siri. You can also listen to this audio at the Raw and a Half podcast. And I will see you guys in my next one.